Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. With Fashion Week upon us here in Paris, we're taking a look at an industry that, while largely targets women, is rarely led by them. This year, just 2 women have been appointed as new creative directors of major fashion houses. This despite an incredible shake-up in the industry. It seems progress on diversity is disappointing. Only 10 out of the 33 creative director roles are currently held by women, and just 2 of them are women of colour. For instance, female creative director Maria Grazia Curie for Dior and Virginie Viard at Chanel were replaced by Jonathan Anderson at Dior and Mathieu Blazy at Chanel. So how is it in 2025 that men are still in charge of women's fashion? With me to discuss this is Dana Thomas, a fashion journalist, and Emilie Hammen, a fashion historian and the new director of Palais Galliera, a fashion museum here in Paris. Thank you to both of you for coming in. Let me start with you, Dana. Should we be alarmed by this significant drop in women leading fashion houses?
We should absolutely be alarmed. And for me, covering the industry now for 40 years, I find it alarming that I'm writing less about women than I did even 15 or 20 years ago. I think it's really heartbreaking for women as customers. It's a problem for women as customers that we have only men telling us what we should be wearing. That there are very few women. There's Stella McCartney, thank goodness, at her own house. And there's Phoebe Philo at her own brand. There have been opportunities where this could have been rectified, and it hasn't been. The biggest misstep for me was Chanel, a house founded by a woman, and it now has a global CEO who is a woman, and yet they went ahead and hired a man for that job, when there were plenty of women who could have done a very good job at it.
Emilie, your thoughts?
I agree. I find it very alarming. I find it's a interesting and rather troubling moment to be considering women in fashion. And I would argue that, as Dana said, they're there. They're not very visible, but there are many very talented women who deserve a chance and probably more visibility.
Why do you think this is happening, especially given the high number of women entering the industry?
Oh, it's simple, because the business is still run in C-suites by men, mostly white men. I think it's pretty fair to say only white men. I can't think of any men of color at the top, in the C-suites, top echelons of Kering, LVMH, or Richemont. So they're the ones ultimately making the decisions, and they like to hire the same as they know.
Emilie, what are the major barriers to women working in this industry?
There are many, I think, pertaining to fashion and more generally pertaining to any professional careers. You have to go through all the different steps. You have to work hard, of course, but there's definitely here, I guess, in the industry of fashion, this necessity of committing so much of your life, so many working hours to your work. I don't know if this explains everything, but it is indeed a very demanding industry. And perhaps, this is definitely something to debate. Possibly a moment when women maybe don't want to work as much, or at least have the same work-life balance as some perhaps of the most ambitious men that are in the industry. But again, I feel this is the case of fashion, but can possibly be applied to many other industries.
Dana, what do you think are the major barriers for women?
There are loads of women in the fashion business, but they're going off and starting their own business because they can't get these big brand jobs. There's Maureen Sayre, who's greatly talented, who won the LVMH award, and she has her own company. She would have been a genius fit at Chanel. I've seen them interviewing women, and then I see them not hiring the women. I've actually been in the room and listened to them talking about and batting around and talking to some of these women, and then they don't hire them. They hire the man.
Do you think it's part of the global backlash that we're now witnessing against women's rights, and it's playing out in this industry?
No, I think it's just short-sightedness and tunnel vision.
Emilie, we've seen what happens when women are in charge. Under Maria Grazia Curie's leadership at Dior, female empowerment clearly became a guiding principle, and brand sales jumped from reportedly $2.7 billion in 2018 to more than $9 billion by 2023. And Stella McCartney, we've got the Olsen sisters at the Row. These are all incredible brands. And clearly, women, when they're in charge, those brands are successful, aren't they?
Absolutely. And to think as a historian, I have to also stress that throughout history, throughout the centuries, female leadership and entrepreneurship has been extremely successful. And I think this is not then a valid perspective to think that putting a woman in position of power, putting a woman in charge in terms of finance, in terms of strategy, we have so many examples of when it works in terms of numbers, not just of critical success. And we can go back as far as the 18th century and see a lot of women building their businesses with incredible success.
I mean, we think about the 1920s and 30s with Elsa Schiaparelli, Coco Chanel, Madame Grey. You know, these were really fantastic women. And at these brands now, they're run by men.
Let's just pause there to talk about the demise of yet another key fashion trend. Body positivity was making inroads in recent years, promoting healthier, more inclusive representations of beauty. But it seems to have taken very much a backseat in 2025, as Olivia Salazar-Winspear explains.
Ultra skinny is now back in vogue, if the latest runway shows are anything to go by. Plus-size models like Ashley Graham were walking for Dolce & Gabbana, Christian Siriano and Michael Kors in previous seasons, and French pin-up Leslie Sidora fronted lucrative ready-to-wear campaigns just a couple of years ago. But the body positivity movement has been conspicuous by its absence in recent collections. Vogue Business reports that larger models only accounted for 0.8% of figures on the catwalks for the Spring-Summer 2025 collections, a dip compared to 5 years ago. Even established models are now seeing their bookings evaporate.
We all know each other. We see each other's work. We pass each other, we know each other. And you know the girls that are working the most. And you know it's bad when those girls aren't working and those girls are messaging you and being like, me too. I'm serving again. I'm doing this. All of these brands that recently launched plus size extended sizes, they're discontinuing them. Old Navy launched up to size 30 in store, and within a year, they've eliminated almost all plus sizes in store.
The shift back towards size zero models has also seen celebrities and influencers following suit, with actress Lily Collins modelling a Calvin Klein outfit in recent photos and prompting concerns over her strikingly thin physique. The trend's been taken up on social media with a subculture known as skinny talk, videos encouraging extreme dieting and even eating disorders, something medical professionals and parents have flagged up and urged TikTok to regulate. While potentially fatal conditions like anorexia are not new, the availability of drugs that work as appetite suppressants has had a major effect on body image, according to some experts. They say the arrival of GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic has changed the landscape, with high-profile figures endorsing their use.
Yes, I'm on row. They say GLP-1s for weight loss is a shortcut. It's not, it's science. After kids?
Actress Rebel Wilson has spoken about using the drugs to maintain her new weight, as well as Oprah Winfrey. Many others are rumoured to have reshaped their bodies using medication initially developed to treat diabetes. Yet the larger question of representation in fashion is still a key factor in an industry where image is everything and not all bodies seem to be celebrated as much as others.
Watching that report with me is Dana Thomas, a fashion journalist, and Emilie Hammen, a fashion historian and new director of Palais Galliera, a fashion museum here in Paris. Dana, yet another highly disturbing U-turn in an industry when it comes to women and the representation of women, and the fact that we've seen all sizes and all ages now on the runway parade for quite a few years. So what is behind this trend? Is it casting agents, the designers themselves, or do we have to thank Ozempic?
It's a bit of everything. The biggest U-turn came when Edward Enninful was asked to leave or left British Vogue because he had three pillars at the magazine: diversity, inclusivity, and sustainability. So diversity and inclusivity meant that he put on the cover all shapes, all sizes, and all colors. And once he was gone, Anna Wintour back in charge of British Vogue and therefore all the Vogues, and she herself is what we used to call a social X-ray, extremely thin. You know, it starts from the top down. And so when she says, this is what we care about, then that's what everybody who works for her or works adjacent cares about. Now, I'm going to throw you a funny curveball you didn't see coming. I was a model back in the 80s, and I experienced this back then, where they would make us stand on a scale, or you got sent home if you'd put on 2 kilos, and you had to, you know, and the agent would watch what you ate and take you out to lunch and dinner for a week to make sure you shed those 2 kilos. I went through that. It's very controlling, and I saw girls who suffered from eating disorders in the business really badly. Do you see my hip bones and things like that? So it's damaging, but it's been damaging for a long time. And fashion revolves around that. They just want human hangers to show off these clothes. John Galliano used to complain the worst thing about designing for curvy women was that their boobs and their hips got in the way.
I want to ask the both of you at this point, I mean, because it is a rather depressing note in terms of what we're witnessing with this industry, which seems to be going backwards as opposed to going forward. Are there any young, bright women fashion designers on the scene that we should be taking notice of? Emilie, you first.
I was quite excited because she was a former co-worker, but an extremely talented designer. One of the only women to be put in the position of creative director at a brand over the past few months was Meryl Rogue, a Belgian designer, extremely talented, and I'm extremely happy for her, and I'm sure the brand will benefit greatly from her vision, from her passion.
Dana?
This designer out of Sweden, Hodakova, is really interesting, and she does a lot of upcycling and blending the arts. She goes, you know, to flea markets and finds things and uses them, recycling furs and so on.
So we shouldn't give up hope.
Don't give up hope. It's all about hope.
I want to thank both my guests, Emilie Hammen from Palais Galliera and fashion journalist Dana Thomas. Thank you so much. That's it for this edition, so until our next show, bye for now.